G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by Osiris and Dyson, and we're going to be talking about immersion breaking landing zones. And a little bit of a caveat before we start. Obviously things are still in development, subject to change, but we've spotted a few things that we think that if they're not changed now, then they may be stuck with us permanently. So Dyson, would you like to elaborate?
Yes, there's a really concerning issue with the cities that we got so far. These huge procedurally generated cities that look lovely, but you can get nowhere near it to actually explore it, and you get this horrible no-fly zone red light saying nope, and then you have to land in this little tiny speck in the city, and then the only way you can interact with the city is through public transit.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of a backward step too, back to where originally it was going to be these guided down to landing zones, and then they had all this procedural tech that they've spent all this time developing, and we're not getting to be able to fully experience it and utilize it. So yeah, it's a shame.
And that procedural planetary tech kind of begot the hover bikes, didn't it? Like the Dragonfly and the Nox. And what I'd like to see them move toward is this scenario where you can land your planet, land your ship on a planet, and then drop your ramp, and then fly out the back of your ship on your hover bike and go explore the area that way and traverse the terrain on your bike primarily, rather than either flying in a ship or moving on foot.
Yeah. Even in a city, though. So if you can, you know, land in a city and drive your Nox out the back and your Blade Runnering down a highway and off into the city streets, that's what I want to do. And I know that may all be down the line, but
they need to create opportunities for us to use those hover bikes.
Well, if you
is what I'm saying.
If you looked at ATV on the week, there were no streets in ArcCorp, none. Where do I drive in ArcCorp? You know, where do I drive in Lawville?
There's no landing pads, so where do you fly if you're living in those houses?
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. Like they say that there's no. Okay, we're in the future, so we don't use vehicles like that. But then why do they even have landing vehicles or land vehicles? Like, so they would still use roads. It's just a little bit of a weird juxtaposition. So they've either got to have it one way or the other. And if you had just flying, you would need landing pads. Because if I was going to, you know, say I'm a person living in ArcCorp and I want to go visit Osiris, how do I get to his house? Do I have to literally walk the entire way and use public transport the entire way? Or would I get in my ship and fly to your house like I would in my car today? But yeah,
here's an analogy for you. It's as if in today's society you could only fly between international airports and then you had to walk from there wherever you were going. That's what ArcCorp is.
That's insane. Yeah, like fly to that's insane. Like, and some people I know live 2-hour drive from an airport, so that's just ridiculous. And that's not even an international airport. But yeah, that's crazy. That's a really good analogy, actually. So yeah, and you know, not even to mention the gameplay troubles that we were talking a little bit before the show about. Say I'm a bounty hunter, and I go hop onto a train at I'm chasing someone, and he gets onto the train. Either I catch him straight away because he's run into a dead end on the train, or he completely utterly escapes. So there's no long drawn out chase. Where if there was a car sequence, he could jump on his Nox and chase him down or whatever. And not only that, it gives you more options to use those racy type of vehicles that at the moment are pretty crap, let's be honest, because there's not a lot they can do. But it also means you could actually build, you know, like a Porsche style car. They could build a whole bunch of series of cars as well. And you know, you could have you know, land-based vehicles with more guns and EMP takeouts and gadgets and all that type of cool thing. So I can see why they probably took the roads out, because they probably don't want to do all that work, but it's a lot of cool things that they could have added.
Well, even if we don't drive on those roads, the fact that they're there provides the immersion, because it doesn't make sense that you would have to have a landing pad on all of these buildings, because just imagine you want to have a party. How are you getting everyone's vehicle over there? Is everyone taking public transit? And even if we take public transit there, the immersion is awesome. the first several times you go on the train in Lorville, or just imagine going on to whatever the flying vehicle they're going to have in ArtCorp. But it's the same route. It's going to get boring very, very quickly. And even if we are taking that type of thing and you have very limited driving routes, just a couple basic roads or areas in the habitable, playable areas, that will go a long way to making it feel real, even if the entire city doesn't have those aspects.
It's also like you said before with, Lorville. You come into land at Lorville and there's this tiny little rectangle that you land on. It's the same thing with ArtCorp, but what is the whole point of building this entire planet if you're only going to ever land on this tiny little area? Because at least on Hurston, I can go out and land somewhere. I'm not going to be able to land anywhere on ArtCorp. Nowhere.
And, you kind of hinted at another... You hinted at another relevant topic when you were mentioning the bounty hunting earlier, because the way I'm seeing bounty hunting is a lot of bounties are going to be captured on foot, not in a ship.
Yep.
People are going to use their ships to transport themselves from point A to point B, but the points of interest, they're going to get out and they're going to interact with people and they're going to do things like you see in any other MMO.
Yep. And just hang on, just while he's on the point of bounty hunting, what about the Hawk? That was sold with the screen at the bottom so you can chase people down. Now, if you're in a city, you're going to run because you can go into cover or whatever, or potentially lose me. But if I'm out in the middle of nowhere, like on most of the planets where it's just a desert, even if you had trees, you probably wouldn't run because you've got nowhere to go. You would just, if they destroy your ship, you would just give up. Because you've got, well, I'm not going to run for 4 days to get back to wherever I've got to get to. I'd rather just
to the present gameplay.
Yeah, it'd be quicker to die and just get it over with. You either shoot yourself in the head and respawn, or run off and do the jail thing, like Dotsie just said. I don't know. There's either some things missing, or we don't have the full picture at the very least. But I just seen some real broken elements myself. Sorry, Dustin?
Well, they're going to be adding in the city. During the Pappy interview, some of those buildings are going to be interactable with and have missions in them. But even with that, I want to be able to fly amongst the city. And when you think about it, they kept saying, well, it's immersion breaking if you have griefers just crashing into the habitable areas. I'm like, yeah, have the no-fly zones over that. Don't have it over the city that no one's in, because think about it this way. If a tree falls in the woods, i.e. griefer crashing into a building, if no one's there, did it make a sound? Well,
then who cares?
Yeah. And their whole thing for immersion is they'd want the whole building to fall down and collapse and all that stuff, and obviously
doesn't have to do that.
Doesn't have to do that. They could say all buildings have shields. So, to stop that, The other interesting thing you kind of brought into my memory too is ArtCorp used to have an ocean, so I think one of the reasons they've got for that, it's obviously easy to do the entire city as a giant building, a giant flat spherical sphere, but it's completely unrealistic. What about mountains and stuff like that? They wouldn't have the money, well, maybe they would, to terraform. But it'd look awesome, wouldn't it? Having this giant mountain range in the middle of nowhere, and they've just built buildings on top of it because they've literally covered every service they can. So, you were mentioning before the show, Osiris, about parks and stuff. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, how about a park? You think about a place that's as densely inhabited as Manhattan, and even there they save room for Central Park, a giant green space in the middle of a dense urban zone.
Yeah, there's some
people go crazy without green spaces.
It's a psychological thing, isn't it? Like, because we're basically animals. If we don't have greenery around, we go nuts. And that's one of the things I noticed with Lorville too. There were no plants in the city, none. Which I found.
A green corporation, there's some basic psychological needs you have to fulfill for your people, so they at least are content.
I could understand in the worker zone. But in the actual Hurston Dynamics building, no. There would be plants everywhere. Because they would have a tree on balcony type of thing, like you know, just really elaborate tree stuff personally. But you know, I can understand it being this this future tech thing, but there's a lot of little things I think they've overlooked, and I think that's, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it comes along and it doesn't come along too late for me personally.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we've missed, guys? I'm trying to think. I think we've kind of got everything, haven't we?
I think
Trees,
we got it
bounty
on.
hunting, rivers. The one thing I do want to say is part of the other reason roads make sense, and
Yep.
I'm just going for this, is the issue is you need to make it feel like it's a truly lived-in city.
Yep.
From even a class standpoint, because the rich
Yep.
people would be able to afford your spaceships.
Yep.
The poor people would probably have to use mass transit, and your middle class would probably use actually vehicles, like ground vehicles and stuff like that.
We're already seeing that in our time at the moment. Like, we're seeing the rise of Uber and Google self-driving cars and stuff. And if the movie I talked about with you guys before the show was Minority Report, where you would just have a car, you would call a car, it would rock up, you would use it, do what you want to do with it, and then you leave it and it'll go off and do another job. And I see that would work really well in a game like Star Citizen, because you could just have all these generic cars going around on the ground level, and you just, you know, hail one, or use your Mobiglass even, because we've got that in game now, to hail one, and then you could use it. And you know, I can see all that gameplay, and I can see a bounty hunter sitting behind me in a car going, follow that car, you know, and he puts a tracker on your car, and all. I can see all that gameplay developing, and it would be really cool. But it just seems to be all being missed and overlooked, which is really unfortunate. There was one other thing I was going to mention. Oh yeah, the classes. You were talking about classes. Yeah, Lawville, really low working classes and really high, so there is a gap there. But with ArtCorp coming along, they have mentioned the suburbs and stuff like that. So hopefully we do see a little bit more of that lived in and feel.
Just to feel immersion, because my issue currently with Star Citizen is you go to an area and it feels very homogeneous.
Yep.
You go there and everyone's poor, or you go to another, or you go into Hearst.
Oh, shit!
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, we can keep it, but you go to Hurston and everyone is rich into one area. You just don't. There's no real feeling of middle class. Even in the city, you have those areas where everyone kind of mingles.
Yeah, sorry about that. I clicked on the wrong thing.
So I'm just saying, it just breaks immersion to feel like it's one whole thing or another whole thing. There's no in between or no mixing of that.
I think we'll see.
Hopefully they iterated on it and we get some of these things addressed down the road.
Yeah, well, we saw that initial implementation of ArtCorp where they were drawing everything with pixels. So hopefully they can just make some road tile sets and they can put them all in. And also, if they put in roads, they can obviously put trees down the sides of the roads and stuff like that, and all that type of thing. All right, I think that's about everything. So this has been Osiris. This has been Execute. I am terrible. That is Dyson. I am Execute, and we'll catch you guys next time. I need some sleep. This is terrible. All right, or maybe just some food.